Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. That's my sofa, this is my doggy Roscoe, and my name's Paul. Now today we are going to be talking about a little bit of a more serious subject, a little bit more of a pinpointed, focused subject. And this is on some of these new charges that could potentially be coming against Lori and Chad Daybell, also where they're stemming from, and a person that a lot of people are saying, well, why wasn't she charged? And that person is Melanie Pawlowski. And I just want to look at a few different aspects of this info dump, this, document dump that's come out recently in the case. Because once I started reading that and then going back to this video, this interview of them that they did with Nate, and I'm talking about Melanie and Ian, I was like, hold up, this ain't adding up. So before we get started, I want to lay out how we're going to do this video. And again, for those who might not be completely versed in the case, who is who. Okay, so as far as who is who goes, Melanie Pawlowski is married to Ian Pawlowski now. She used to be Melanie Boudreax. She was married to Brandon Boudreax. Melanie, is Lori Daybell's niece. So there's that. That's who we're talking about here. Now, a lot of you will be familiar with some of these other names, Alex and Chad, and people like that, as we get into this. Now, the three bits of information that we're going to be going off of are as follows. Now, just so you know also, my computer is right here. That's why this side of my face is brighter. I'm going to be kind of referencing some notes on here. We're also going to be looking at some clips from these interviews that she did with Nate Eaton along the way. So just kind of bear with me, please. So we're going to be looking at the incident investigative report on 10/3/21. Now remember, this was a day after the incident, the attempt on Brandon's life took place. Now that is where Detective Ryan Pillar interviews Melanie about the attempt on Brandon's life. Another bit of information we're going to be looking at is the report that Detective Ryan Pillar did summarizing the investigation on the attempt of Brandon's life. And then also, last but not least, is that interview that Melanie and Ian Pawlowski did with Nate Eaton of Eaton, East Idaho News. We're going to be looking at that. Now, also, down in the description, if you don't want to hear my commentary, you just want to go straight to the source, all that kind of stuff, well, it's all down there for you. So we have the links to the report, the two reports we're going to be talking about, as well as all those videos. The reports, if you follow this case, you probably already followed the amazing journalists who are on this. Award-winning journalists here. We have Justin Lum, we have Nate Eaton with East Idaho News. I keep wanting to say Eaton, Idaho News. It should be that. But all their links are down below, and all the links to the direct things for this. So one thing that Justin did with some of these is he highlighted, Justin did with some of these is he highlighted the parts that really grabbed his attention that were primarily focused on this. I have done that as well, but it's even more scaled down than his. So they're not really big, huge documents. So if you want to hear my 2 cents, not all great, but I also highly suggest reading through those documents because there's other information in there that's interesting. So first, we're going to look over Detective Ryan's summary of the whole situation. And we're just going to talk about some aspects that are in that. And again, I'm going to kind of be referencing my notes over here. So on 10/30/2018, this is when Chad sent Lori the rating system with her family, this light, dark thing, all this kind of stuff. And it had Melanie and Brandon on there, and Brandon, being part of that system of ratings and whatnot. Now, it's around this time that Lori and Melanie start spending more time with each other. Okay, now let's just look at this quick clip right here in regards to this.
Do you believe that Brandon has turned dark?
No, and that's in that document, the terminology, the way I understand this is in our faith, you have, as you increase in becoming closer to your Savior and act on obedience and righteousness, you increase in light. And as you, make bad decisions or, invite evil things into your life, you're losing that light of Christ.
So one thing I want to take away from this clip, because we see this, especially going back with the information that we know now, look at how a roundabout way she goes about answering these questions. And it gets worse as the things that I'll show or whatever. This is definitely serving that vibe of backing away. We've seen this with like Melanie Gibb, other people involved in this situation where it's like, well, actually, I think it meant this or I think it meant that. Now, also, we're going to talk here in a second some of the reasonings why she was wanting to divorce Brandon. And here's my thing. I'm like, okay, so hold up, and we'll get into it more, like I said. But I'm just like, you're trying to tell me that, like, oh, no. I didn't believe that he had gone dark. This is really what it means, and yada, yada, yada. But all of this other stuff will completely show to the contrary that, in my opinion, she was knee deep in these beliefs. Okay, so June 2019, the summary states that this is when like the divorce between them begins to take place. Now, the summary also states that Brandon and Charles spoke, and Charles warned him that Melanie is spending a lot of time with Lori, and that he, believes that Lori was manipulating Melanie in regards to like some of the thought processes about Brandon and whatnot, as well as other things, obviously. It also states that even though the divorce was going through, Melanie remained the beneficiary of Brandon's life insurance and kept paying for it. Interesting. Now we're going to watch another clip here in 1 second, but here's my thing with this. Take note. Okay, so this is when we start hearing these rumblings of Charles is warning Brandon, and again, we can now look back and see this is more of the authentic truth that was going on. At the time of this interview with Melanie, of course, we didn't have all this information that we do now. So it makes looking back at this interview more like, really? 100% Charles was calling this out to every single person. And all of these people, including himself that he kept calling out with, a lot of them are no longer here or were attempted to be no longer here.
I've been asked, well, what spiritual experiences has Lori had? And that's not for me to answer or to say what Lori and Chad's beliefs are. But I know the people they are, and I know they're good people, and they're trying, and there's somebody that people as a family would get together and talk about, the mysteries of God and these deep doctrine conversations. And hey, what do you think about this? What about this idea? Or hey, this is in a book. What do you think about this? And we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to discern truth from error and just learn. And in our church, we believe in revelation, where we can, it's an ongoing process, and we're learning, and continually everything's changing.
So again, with this clip right here, the thing that sticks out to me is the whole, we're allowed to get together as a family and, talk about these ideas and whatnot. And we see this from everybody kind of involved with this, especially like with Melanie Gibb, the way she taught that these conversations, the podcast, everything. This is like a huge hobby or whatever with this entire family is doing that. But the part that gets me is how she tries to say, well, I can't say what her experiences were. The disconnect from the belief system. And remember, the time of these interviews going on that we're seeing with Melanie Ian, there was that big leak of that document that she talked about the zombie stuff, the ratings and all that. And at that time, that was kind of new to us, remember, in the case. So everybody was like, this is absolutely crazy. We had no idea what we were in for. Remember, the children had not been found at this point, so on and so forth. And again, this, if you haven't watched this originally, watch it in its entirety. Your mouth will be on the floor. I just picked out some of the highlights that kind of particularly, specified what's going on right now. So again, it's very interesting to me to see how she's backing away from all of this. Now let's watch this next clip.
I warned him. I said, if Natalie's probably going to try to get a hold of Brandon, and Brandon's going to run with all these lies about me. And Ian knew knew who I was, but the factor of Tylee and JJ going missing, and he's never seen them before, and had only met Chad and Lori one time. He doesn't know, what I know about the past of Lori trying to do everything she can to protect her kids and people who have been threatening her.
Okay, so again, in this little clip we see, first of all, this narrative about Brandon. He's going to run with all these lies. Natalie's going to contact him. He's going to do this, and then also the narrative of Lori's story. Oh, she's been trying to protect the kids, yada, yada, yada. And again, we just go back to this initial time of, this is when she started spending a lot of time around Lori. We've already heard testimony and, accounts, witness testimony, whatever you want to call it, from Brandon saying, look, this is where their marriage fell apart. Now, another thing that I think is interesting is how much she seemingly has gone with whatever line of BS was fed to her. Whether it came from Chad, from Lori, from Alec, whatever. It's she seems to have not questioned anything about Lori's story, but then all of a sudden, I mean, she was married to Brandon for 11 years. They have kids together, for God's sakes. So the fact that all of a sudden it was like, bam, here we go. This is this. We're divorcing, yada, 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 speaks volumes to me in regards to not only the delusion, but also the influence that these people had over her train of thought. Okay, so let's continue. So July 11th is when the event took place in which Charles lost his life. July 13th, the text messages between Lori and Chad. Chad is talking about having to cleanse the bad spirits at Melanie's house that Brandon created. Now, let's listen to this real quick from this clip.
I see everything that Charles did, and it looks as if he was setting up. As soon as Lori caught on to what he had done, like the emails about his life insurance, Charles sold life insurance and had his own company. I mean, the texts between people, it almost looked like a setup. It was very alarming to see all these things.
So again, let's just keep this in mind. Now, remember, she is separating from Brandon. She still has the life insurance thing going, right? So then she's talking about Charles and yep, here he goes. He sold life insurance. He was creating this setup, in regards to him switching the policy, all this type stuff. So you can see where now with the information we have behind the scenes, how much information was going on amongst all these family members circulating about this person's evil, that person's evil, yada, yada, yada. And it always seems to come back to money. Now, a greater truth that this video is going toward, just so everybody knows, is the fact that when we get into the whole dynamic of she hasn't been charged, and it's almost like this, well, I didn't know what was going on, and we'll get to those parts in a few minutes. These are where I'm just like, no, honey, I'm not buying that at all. Okay, so let's get a little bit deeper here. So on 9/17/2019, Melanie texts Brandon and gets his new address. Now, in later interviews, he will confirm that she was one of like 4 people who had that address. Now, remember, this address is the one where the attempt on his life will be taken. So that was on the 17th. On the 23rd, the lease at his new place begins. On the 25th, Alex is in possession of the Jeep Wrangler, and he takes it to get the windows tinted. And I'm talking like the back window was like, what, 5%? The other one, the front window, 20%. I mean, these were dark, okay? 9/26, Melanie flies from Mesa, Arizona to Idaho Falls, and also on that same day, Alex activates his throwaway phone. On the 28th, Alex visits a gun range. Please hold while I turn the screen. On the 29th, Melanie flies back to Mesa, Arizona. October 1st, Alex's Gmail account searches for Brandon's new address. Also on the 1st, Lori rents the storage unit. Remember that famous footage that we saw? Okay, so on the 2nd, now this is the day that this happens, right? Alex's Gmail account again searches for Brandon's address as well as directions from the location he was at. He travels there, and phone communications between Chad and Alex are documented during this time. Okay, so eyewitnesses also say they saw a Jeep fitting the description of Charles's Jeep that was parked idling across from Brandon's on the wrong side of the road. It's also mentioned that no wheel was fixed onto the back of the Jeep. Let's pause for a second. Okay, so look at all the movements and motions that are taking place, right? Okay, so now again, remember, at the time of this, and especially like Melanie's interview, we didn't know all this information. I mean, we've just found like these, we've been piecing a lot of it together, but like this is like hands down, like boom, 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 all laid out. And it is so obvious what happened. Now, there's still some things left unturned. Again, where I'm working up to this is where I'm just like, you cannot tell me she had no clue that any of this was going on, okay? I do not believe for a second that Lori and Chad were just going to make all this happen behind her back and never tell her anything. It could possibly be that way, but there's way too much involvement. Even if she was going the route of being like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll give you the address. Oh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll fly here to do this. You see where I'm going? It doesn't set right with. Okay, let's continue. So, same day, the 2nd. There is surveillance of Chad and Lori dropping off the tire at the storage unit that day. There are numerous communications between Chad and Alex's burner phones after the event at Brandon's. There's also a 23-minute phone call on Alex's regular phone to Lori's phone. I mean, y'all, This is not, I mean, these were not the smartest, but thank God they weren't, because it's all unraveling, but I just wish it had unraveled sooner. But I mean, my God, I mean, come on. I mean, I'm talking leaving breadcrumbs everywhere, but what a mess to sort through to bring justice to the system. I mean, it's so convoluted. Okay, let's continue. Now, here's the thing that is like the clincher for me. So, on that day, Lori's Gmail account searches for man shot in Gilbert, Arizona. Man shot in Gilbert, Arizona on 10/02/2019, and Avenue News Brandon Boudreax. I mean, come on. I mean, come on. Now, this is just what blows my mind. So then let's again revisit, Melanie's testimony here. Oh, they're good people. Oh, Brandon is horrible. Oh, Charles is horrible. So on and so forth. Oh, I don't know Lori's belief. Oh, we're not that close. Oh, you see what I'm saying? It is completely sus. It does not make sense. And the fact that, I mean, y'all, at the time of this recording, these charges have been submitted. They haven't come through. If they do not hit Lori and Chad with these charges, I mean, to me, and again, I ain't no lawyer, I ain't no detective, I'm none of that. But I'm just like, I mean, my God, the trail of breadcrumbs is so clear and obvious. It goes right to the gingerbread house. Okay, so now also on 10/3, around 04:28 Mountain Time, Lori and Alex are seen driving northbound on US Highway 20 near Rexburg. Around 14:11 and 14:14 hours, Lori and Alex are seen at that self-storage, plus on surveillance cameras getting what appears to be the backseat and a tire out of storage. So, I mean, again, just add this up. They get the car, they tint the windows, he goes and practices his gun range stuff. They take the tire and the backseat out, they rent storage, they put it in there. They do the deed, they go get the stuff back. I mean, come on. I mean, literally, it's just, I'm floored by this. Okay, so now let's look at the interview that took place the next day. Now, this is again between Detective Ryan Pillar and Melanie. And this, to me, is where I'm just like, oh my God. Okay, so now the summary of the investigation was conducted by the Gilbert Police Department between 10/3/2019, 10/31/2019. So 10/3 is the marker for the day after the attempt on Brandon's life, right? Okay, Melanie Boudreax, aka Melanie Pawlowski, she's interviewed on 10/3, right? So, first of all, the officer writes, and this is in the report, that after the initial investigation on 10/2, they call Melanie in for an interview. They note that she doesn't ask what the interview is about, but agrees to come in. Okay, so pause right there. This is one of those things where I'm like, now granted, they had a lot of stuff going. I'm trying to play both sides of the fence here. I feel like I would have been like, oh yeah, what's it going to be in reference to? What this serves, the vibes, if you're familiar with the Grant Amato case, remember when, I mean, I get they didn't bang her door down at a hotel and like drag her in or whatever, but remember how when they went and got Grant and like all these officers went and like, took him in, and he never asked until like a couple hours in the interview what they're there for. It's like, hello. Like that would be the first thing out of your mouth. So with this, again, I think it's interesting that like the day after, she doesn't want to know why they want to talk to her. Mouth closed, lips zipped. So the officer's like writing like, confirming basic information about her. And he notes in this report that Melanie confirms that, yeah, Brandon and I are in stages of divorce. She does not work. She lives off of money that she gets from the divorce. Now, I'm not shaming anybody that's in that situation, like, that's getting alimony, child support, anything like that. I mean, that's a completely normal thing. However, for this family, it seems to be a business, and that business involves people losing their lives. So that's the part that I'm just like, now, of course, he would not know this at this time, but I'm like, interesting. Because she had a pretty, I mean, from the sounds of it, she got a pretty sweet deal, but that didn't seem to be enough. Now, in regards to why she got divorced, and now remember, well, let me read this first real quick, and then we'll go back to this. So, in regards to why she got divorced, she says it's because Brandon was gay. Some of her reasons she cited was that he lost weight, he became confident. She says she saw gay pictures on his phone. She also accused him of using ecstasy, and it was a gay drug. She cites numerous times she confronted him about it, and he was defensive. Okay, now that's just like one thing right there, y'all. Okay, so let's revisit the clip, okay, about the light and dark thing real quick.
Do you believe that Brandon has turned dark?
No, and that's in that document, the terminology, the way I understand this is in our faith, you have, as you increase in becoming closer to your Savior and act on obedience and righteousness, you increase in light. And as you, make bad decisions or, invite evil things into your life, you're losing that light of Christ.
So again, this is the part that gets me about this part, is if you listen to her answer, do you think that Alex or that Brandon has gone dark? And in so many words, in my opinion, she says yes. I mean, she gives this this biblical, not even biblical, but her philosophy, her religion, whatever, definition of light and dark. And I'm like, yeah, by that definition, I would say he's going away from that light and turning darker, and that's the part that kind of boggles me at this point when I rewatch this stuff, is that all of this stuff does seem to come from, we've heard this story over and over and over. So as much as she's sitting here saying that she's not really down with these beliefs, she's trying to back away from them, she can't see what their beliefs are. This is stuff that we have seen time and time again. And she's specifically talking about this, the document here, like, oh, in the document it says this, and in our religion we believe this. Well, you can look at the stuff that Melanie Gibb has said as well, that confirms more like what, Nate's asking here, and confirms what was in this document more so than what Melanie is saying. So that part I find to be very sus as well. So remember how I said a minute ago about the divorce and she got a good deal and all this kind of stuff. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about the finances. So in this summer, Melanie says that Brandon always made really good money and she received several payouts from, as well as a monthly payment for child support. Now she also says that she is on his life insurance and that she was supposed to get her own policy with him as the beneficiary per agreements in the divorce, but she hadn't done so yet. Now right there I'm just like, oh no. You know why she hasn't? Because she knows what'll happen. That's like a death wish in that family to get a life insurance policy on you. But again, I'm just like, how intriguing, how selfish, number one. But then also it makes you wonder whether they already know what was going to take place. Like, how long was this in the works? You know what I'm saying? And interesting that we don't know the particulars of the divorce and all that stuff, and maybe he wanted her to remain on it for the time being because she's the mother of his children, so on and so forth. They were together for 11 days, forgot. Oh my God, I can't say it. 11 years. 11 hours, 11 days. They were together for 11 years. I could see that part, but on the same note, again, it just doesn't add up. And what it looks like more to me is that, that's the way this whole family seems to operate. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the specific events on 10-2 in the summary, the chain of events on that day, because this is where I'm like, whoa, this speaks volumes to me. Okay, so the officer states that Brandon drops the children off with her in the morning and that Melanie couldn't remember what they did after that. Couldn't remember. And she said sometimes they go to the park, other times the gym, but she couldn't remember what they did that day. She did remembering order groceries, making dinner, and going to bed. So she has no recollection of what she did the day before the day that her husband, technically, his life was attempted to be taken. That right there tells me everything I need to know about the situation. Case damn closed. Let's continue. So when asked if she talked to anyone that day, she said that Brandon did call her several times, which was odd. She said he also sent a message saying he had a bad day and wanted to check on the children. The officer states that Melanie said she didn't reply until that day, so like the day after, the 3rd, and that she said the kids are fine and she hoped he had a better day. And I'm like, okay. And I know everybody's walks a different walk in their shoes and stuff. But my thing is I'm like, if he's sitting there blowing your phone up, contacting you more, which is odd. I want to check on the kids. How's this? And you don't contact him at all. It's like she purposely avoided talking to him because she knew it was going to happen. And she didn't want there to be any evidence on her phone. Now, I might be giving them too much damn credit because you sit here and say that on one side of the thing, but then the other side, I'm like, but there's Alex and Chad just blowing their damn phones up. They thought they were burner phones, but then you have Alex talking to Lori on the regular phone, but maybe they thought that was normal. I don't know. This is how my brain works with all this stuff. Now, the officer also noted that she couldn't remember if she talked to anybody else that day either. Please. I would understand, I mean, at this point in life, if it was the week before, I mean, my God, I can barely keep my, name straight. But the day before, I mean, come on. Like, how gullible do you think we are? Now, also of interest, so the officer writes, he tells her, well, somebody tried to take Brandon's life yesterday. And the expression doesn't change. Nothing, just, psh, okay, she remains quiet. Didn't seem to faze her. I'm like, okay. Again, to me, it feels forced. You know what I'm saying? Like, not even like, oh my God, really? Like, what? Or a normal reaction like, no. Or something to this flavor, but just nothing. We just move along. Now, let's get a little bit deeper into this, and let's also look at some of her responses in the Nate Eaton interview that are going to be contradictory to what we're about to go over. Okay, so when asked if she knew anyone that would want to take his life, Brandon's, she's like, oh, we hung out with a bunch of people that I didn't know. And then she circles back around to the Charles Vallow, saying that, oh, Brandon liked to do biz with Charles, and, tells the investigator all about this investigation, the kids, all this stuff going on. And she's like, I tried telling Brandon not to talk to Charles. He had cheated on Lori. And, she said that since his death, Brandon had been saying that what Alex did, it wasn't in self-defense. And she also said she felt like Brandon was trying to drive a wedge between her and her family, Alex and Lori. Okay, so again, this is almost like she's a little puppet and Lori is speaking through her, or Chad, who knows, but it's just like this recording, somebody mimicking stuff. So let's listen to this clip real quick and about what she has to say about Charles.
I see everything that Charles did, and it looks as if he was setting up. As soon as Lori caught on to what he had done, like the emails about his life insurance, Charles sold life insurance and had his own company. I mean, the texts between people, it almost looked like a setup. It was very alarming to see all these things.
So again, we circle back to the story of Charles is bad. This is this is how this went. This is the way it went down. But then when specifically asked about Alex, let's just watch this because you'll see a pattern with some of her answers, and we're going to see it very clearly in this one.
I had my dad sending me threatening messages saying things about the shooting and that Brandon Boudreaux's claiming, and I never even know, I still to this day don't know if this shooting actually happened or who did this. I
Do you think it was Alex?
The only time I thought it was Alex was I think the first initial fear of could Alex have done something like this was I don't know where the first fear came in, but the first meeting with Detective Pillar the day after the shooting, I said, here's all the people Brandon associates with. And then he said, do you have Alex and Lori's number? I said, yeah, here's their number. Do you think they have anything to do with it? But when I heard that, I kind of was like, okay, it sounds like Brandon's trying to set them up for something. And I know they don't have anything to do with it.
So again, let's talk about that pattern. So notice when he just straight up was like, do you think Alex did it? And she starts going to, the only time, that I had a fear or doubt or whatever that he could have done it. And then she literally scrapes the sides of her head inside and then comes back, well, I don't remember when that was. And she just moves on. I'm like, she never even answered the question. She never answered the question. There was just this, gone. And so that part's very interesting. But she does this throughout. To go back and look at it, I'm like, she has this very just weird way of not answering something or making it sound like she's going to do it. And then again, we say, oh, Brandon was going to set them up. Basically, everything we saw Lori doing to everyone else, these people were all blaming everyone else for doing it to them. And of course, I don't even know what the saying goes, but you expect from others what you put out there, basically. So, of course, they think everyone's out to get them because they're out to get everybody. Now, it's also noted in this that Melanie says, Lori was someone that she knew and could trust. And also the mentioning about Ty Lee, being off in college somewhere, but she's not really sure where. So this is, again, where I circle back. I'm like, okay, so this is someone, a family that you have these huge, long, in-depth, conversations about doctrine and this and that, and oh, you're close to her. But you can't even sit here and say where your cousin is going to college at? I mean, really? You know what I'm saying? Like, that just blows my mind. Because frankly, I just don't believe it. Now, also noted in the summary, he writes, Melanie didn't know a specific location for Alex and Lori. When asked to provide phone numbers, Melanie said she wouldn't because she had been told that people can track phones and use listening devices. Now, didn't we just see something about something in a clip? Let's rewind that a little bit.
The first meeting with Detective Pillar, the day after the shooting, I said, here's all the people Brandon associates with. And then he said, do you have Alex and Lori's number? I said, yeah, here's their number. Do you think they have anything to do with it? But when I heard that, I kind of was like, okay, it sounds like Brandon's trying to set them up for something. And I know they don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I thought I was going crazy there for a minute, but apparently not. Okay, so now let's look at a couple of other clips from that interview with some of this knowledge that we have from these reports.
So still to this day, I don't know what happened in this shooting. He had my dad on board sending me text messages saying, Melanie, sentencing is coming soon for you. They know it was Alex. They know it was, this Jeep registered to Tylee. And like, I've been trying to put the pieces together of what's going on because I don't have the facts to that. But the knowledge that I do have, it doesn't add up to all these, speculation and rumors that are flying around. And still to this day, I have not seen one shred of evidence about this shooting Brandon's claiming that leads me to believe that it was Alex Cox.
So now at the time of this recording, we weren't privy to this information, and maybe she wasn't privy to the information that the police had. But this whole, I haven't seen a shred of evidence and and I'm just like, honey, the evidence is spread all over the damn place right around you. They weren't really even trying to hide it. So that's the part that I'm just like, I have a real hard time believing that. And just the fact that she's so steadfast about anything to do with Brandon is evil. She doesn't say that. Those are my words, but it's bad. Lori can do no wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like that kind of a thing. And so, we see how it turned out. Now, let's round this out with another look at another bit of that interview about this belief system.
Melanie, did you actually believe these things that Lori and Chad had told you, or were you telling Ian just to kind of get it off your chest and say, I don't know what to think?
Lori and Chad did not tell me most of those things in the document. Those were fears I was hearing from other people, and never did I believe them, but I feared because when you don't have knowledge about something, you think, and you're in a scary situation like this, you think the worst.
Okay, so when just point blank asked, do you believe this stuff? No, that stuff in the documents wasn't even told to me by Lori and Chad. Well, we already know, number one, that she's been having these huge, conversations with them and these deep, in-depth things, yada, yada, yada. We already know now that Chad and Lori were spewing this BS in this document all around a bunch of other people. Now, granted, we didn't hear her name dropped as much, but also in other stuff we hear about her saying, oh, Zalima was like an aunt to me, so on and so forth. So again, this just feels like she lawyered up and they were like, look, back away from the dumpster fire. There's
no beliefs that I have or that I know that Chad and Lori have that are against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or anything inconsistent with that faith.
Yeah, that didn't age well. It's either this woman is completely clueless or she's in neck deep to all this stuff. Point blank, period. The cookie might have just crumbled in this situation to where the evidence isn't there to really come against her. Like maybe things were done without her having hands on, or maybe she's cooperating with the state. Who knows? But I just feel like it's one of those two things. I don't know. I am very curious to hear what y'all have to say. And again, this is all alleged. This is just my opinion. It is what it is. This is just me reading between the lines and looking back and being like, this doesn't make sense when you said this over here and that over here. So anyways, that's it. I appreciate y'all watching and going through this with me. And again, just let me know, what do you think? Do you think that there will be charges against her? Do you think that there should be charges? Let me know what you think down in the comment section. And until next time, Sofa Squad, we'll see you here.